Thank you. So the graduate assistantships in United States, what is important to know is that we can get the assistantship in the host institution for various purposes, for administrative posts, for teaching posts, and research support. And this assistantship is available for highly qualified students, and it is very competitive. And what are the benefits? The most important thing is the tuition fee is remitted, and you additionally earn something. Plus, you get support for health insurance. And eligibility is not necessarily that your admission process is complete. You can already start applying when you are applying to the universities or institutions. And what else I can tell is that when searching for institute or program, look for it if that institute or university offers the graduate assistantship in United States, and apply. So to talk further on this, unfortunately, Shujaut could not join, Shujaut Bader, but he sent us his voice recorded with the slide, and let's hear him what he has to say about the graduate assistantship, about a master's program or PhD program in the United States.
Hi, in this slide, we'll be talking about the graduate assistantships that are used to support the master's students in United States. It comes basically in two different types. The first one is research assistantships, and the second one is teaching assistantships. As the name suggests, research assistantships are when you get paid for research projects you work on with any professor. So to secure an RA, you need to have a very good research profile and an acceptance into the lab from your potential advisor. And to do that, you have to be in correspondence with them, and you have to, have a very good profile, and you have to be able to express your interest in the work that they're doing in the lab such that they can hire you as a master's student on funds. So that's very important here. I'll leave the last point under the RA section for TAs. I'll expand it more when I discuss teaching assistantships. So as the name suggests, again, teaching assistantships are when you get paid for teaching responsibilities. For example, like conducting labs, grading and proctoring exams, etc. But please be you should be very informed about this fact that most of the professors give their new MS or PhD students TAs rather than RAs, because giving an RA to a fresh master's student is sometimes, a big leap of faith for professors. So what they do is they will test you on TA money for a couple of semesters, and if you do well, then they can, arrange an RA for you. That was basically the last point in the RA section that I had mentioned, that advisor can also recommend TA for the first year or first semester if there is shortage of funds. So that's what they do usually. They can hire you as a TA, and then based on your work and progress, they can ultimately and finally give you an RA. So for TA, you need basically the same kind of profile for an RA, because at the end of the day, what you have to do is you have to impress a professor to fund you, whether by RA or a TA. So, and for to be able to teach at a US university, you also need a very good TOEFL score, particularly in the speaking section. So you have to target scores greater than 27 out of 30 in the speaking section for TOEFL. So that is the crux of the graduate assistantships for master's students in USA. And I'll give it back to Sababai. Thank you.
Thank you, Sujat. So there are further ways to look around on the websites. I found this one interesting. You could have a look on this website about the graduate assistantship and about financial advice for graduates and many other things. You just have a look over there. So going to what we have next is, so there are other sources of graduate fundings. One of them is the agreement between the host country and the home country. For example, United States and India. So this Indian Educational Foundation, UCIEF, this provides a narrow Fulbright fellowship. And there are some charity organizations and societies which also provide fundings for your graduate studies. For example, Tata Education and Development Trust. And what else is possible is that you can talk with the possible future principal investigators or professors to write grants and apply. And then if the grant is successful, you have a funding for your graduate program. And here we have some information about how you can cover your expense and funding for masters in Germany. Hashir Ahmad was supposed to be here, but also he could not join. But let him. I will allow him to introduce himself in this voice message.
Hello everyone, I am Hashir Ahmad and I am a master student at the Technical University of Munich. Currently, I'm writing my thesis at the Max Planck Institute of Neurobiology, where I'm also a graduate research assistant. And I'm sorry for not being in this session because I had some other commitments. Nonetheless, I'm happy to present in this form. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me via email. Hello everyone, I am Hashir Ahmad. In this session, I will be telling you about the tuition fees and living expenses from the German perspective. First of all, you'll be glad to know that there is no tuition fees per se in most of the public institutions in Germany. There is an exception, that is the state of Baden-Württemberg, where a few years back they introduced tuition fees for their study programs. In all the other states, what you pay is a small semester contribution, which is a kind of an administration fee, and it ranges from 100 to 350 euros per semester. In my opinion, it is not a large amount compared to what you pay for the study programs in other countries. Keeping the tuition fees aside, what is left then are the living expenses, and in this case, both the undergraduate and postgraduate students need to block an amount. This equals 10,332 euros for 1 year, and this is also the amount that you need to get a visa at the start of your studies. Having said that, the expenses are then managed from this blocked amount. You get a fixed withdrawal of 861 euros a month, with which you can pay your rent, food, health insurance, semester contributions, and other costs. And so this entire thing is for 1 year. The question then arises is, what happens after 1 year? So what is mostly seen in Germany is that students find a job, a part-time job, and the second option is then to get a scholarship. This does not mean that you cannot get a scholarship at the start of your studies. In some cases, you can also entirely finance your studies through a scholarship. And the last option is to block this amount again from your sponsor, normally your parents, but this is not recommended. With these two options, then how to finance your studies? So we start with the student job. There are many types of student jobs. So roughly they can be categorized in these three classes. So it can be a working student, an assistant job, or a mini job. One thing I would like to focus is that the assistant jobs are not something that you see in the US, where you can waive a small amount of your tuition fees. So in Germany, it is just an earning on the side, and it is the same as having a working student or a mini job. Where to find these student jobs? You can use the online job exchanges, for example, LinkedIn, your university job portal, or local exchanges. Or you can also find these jobs as an advert on the bulletin boards of your institutions. A good thing about these student jobs is that they are easy to get, and there are a lot of options. So you can find a student job that complements your course of study. You can do it in a managerial role. You can also work in a cafe or deliver something, etc. The earning for these jobs ranges from 450 euros a month to 1300 euros a month. This is not a fixed scale. but the lower range of 450 euros is what you get from the mini jobs. The biggest advantage that I see from these jobs is that you gain some experience, some relevant experience, and you can use this experience in the future. In the future, for example, for finding a full-time job, or also for applying to other study programs. The second option I mentioned are the scholarships. In Germany, you can get scholarships for research, for study programs, for German language programs, or for vocational training. Scholarships are not really that popular in Germany. There is a central database though provided by DARD, where you can search for scholarships based on your study program or your country of origin. The other reason these scholarships are not really popular is they are extremely competitive, and the main reason behind this, what I believe, is that there is no tuition fees. So the only scholarships that are provided to students, they have a rigorous criteria for matching a student that should be getting the scholarship. What you get paid in these scholarships is 861 euros per month for graduate students and 1200 euros for PhD students. Again, this amount is not fixed, and it depends on the scholarship that you get. Also to note is that some scholarships have to be paid back. The DART scholarships do not have this criteria. You get this amount and you do not have to pay it back. But there are some scholarships based on charity or some other non-profit organizations that you have to pay back. Regarding the student job, here are some stats. So the minimum wage for any job in Germany is 9.6 euros per hour. And as a student, you can work a maximum of 20 hours per week during the semester period. And this can be increased to 40 hours per week during the vacation period. So even with this small hourly wage, you can still earn a decent amount of around 800 euros during the semester, with which you can finance your studies. There is something that I would also like to mention is that the maximum non-taxable earning that you can get from a job is 450 euros per month, and upward of this amount you also have to pay taxes. So the taxes then depend on the amount that you get from the job, but this is not something of concern because you do not pay a hefty amount in taxes as a student. And as mentioned before, the gross earning range for these jobs is from 450 to 1300 euros a month.
So thank you, Hashir. So let's move forward to what we have. So there are other places where we can search and apply for fundings in Europe. So the one which I prefer to look for is Euraccess, and you see the website there. You can just go to the link there, and what you can do there is you can search for funding opportunities as a researcher, and then you can not only look for funding opportunities, but also PhD and postdoctoral positions are over there listed out. And the best thing is that the website is English. It's easy to use. There is another website, so it's actually a database from Austria in English. It's also in English and in German, but there is option to switch in English. So the database has extensive search engine where you can specifically mention in the website that in the database that which country is your origin in and which place you want to study, for example, Germany or Austria or which country, and then you can find scholarship or funding available, and in fact DART is also included there, so it just covers not only DART, like all the possible scholarship for you for particular destination. So searching for a PhD position in Europe is more or less like a job search. So one of the websites, of course, I mentioned before is Euraccess. You can select, I am a researcher and I want to search for job offers, and you will find many options there. And what else? Possibility is naturejobs.com. The PhD position is also listed over there, and also on LinkedIn. Not only that in the LinkedIn we can find PhD positions, but also masters position, masters related funding is also listed over there from some companies also. And recently I found that Twitter is also very useful in finding the opportunities for PhD programs or postdoctoral positions. So just follow one interesting PI or professor, and you will of course get suggestions of related people. And Job Vector is a website in German, and of course it lists the jobs or PhD position, let's say like that, or in Germany. So then comes the very important part of this webinar is how to contact a professor or a PI. So the first step. So I would like to point out, do you know this name? His name, David Julius. He is a Nobel laureate. He recently got a Nobel Prize in Medicine for identifying the pain receptors. And so, for example, I want to apply to his lab. What I will do is I will search for him on Google, and I will come across his website. When you see here the website, I go there and I open his profile, and then I see what his group is interested in. I read his profile, and then I will look into his papers, which is more relevant to me, or like what is he more into doing, and then have a look to what he's doing and then write to him. And what is important is that your interest and the professor's interest of work should overlap, or if not, at least it should be close enough. And the other way to find out the professors to whom you should contact is starting from the point 3. You come across a paper, you see the name there, you search that in the Google, and you find the person as a professor or PI, and then you contact that person. So there are some points I would like to mention when you are contacting, what are the contents when you are contacting the professors. So it should be important that the PI's profile should match to your profile, and you should advertise your experience. And each sentence should have new information. There should be no repetition. There's no time for a professor or PI to read. There's a lot of things for him to read. And then you should divide your letter in multiple paragraphs. First paragraph, of course, introduce yourself and how you find him or her, and then talk about your skills that fits his or her research profile, and then your interest or your enthusiasm to work with him, how you can contribute in his laboratory. Concluding remarks, so the concluding paragraph of your letter should be like requesting of a possible meeting so that you can express your potential. And when we write the email, there are some do's and don'ts. Of course, first point is use your institutional email address. Be professional. If you don't have an institutional email address, you can of course use some from the other companies like from Gmail or Yahoo, but be careful of not using something like I'm Rockstar Bio. What's that? So that's something which no one wants to, that doesn't give actually the information about you. It's just some email. So with your, create an email with your name, first name, last name, and then write with that email address. And use subject line wisely, and not leave it empty. Most of the people leave it empty sometimes. That's bad, but sad truth. So it is the first thing that a professor or any recipient who is receiving your email reads. And this also protects your email from landing the spam folder. The solution is very important. So you should write like dear professor, doctor, and then last name, and so on. And then sign off with the best regards or sincerely. And then after that, you should write your full name. And then send the email. Send the email, yes, on time. So now I would like to request Salman to come over and take the decision from here. Salman, please.
Okay, thank you, Sababhai, for these informative slides. So until now, what you have heard is from the perspective of a grad student who was successful in getting a funded position. And what Sababhai was telling you was coming from what he believed worked for him. So next, we would take a perspective from a faculty member itself, and he would give details about what he expects when a student would contact them and what does he, and it did give a holistic picture for our SSGSA scholars. Now, next, I would like to invite our next speaker, Dr. Saif Sheikh. Saif Bhai, as he is known in SSGSA, he did his PhD from IIT Kanpur, and then he came to US to do his postdoctoral research in Purdue University. And then he started working in the pharmaceutical industry. He worked for a number of companies, and he's currently the vice president of Jina Pharmaceuticals. But more than this qualification, his professional qualification, the best way to introduce Saif Bhai is that he is the founding member of SSGSA and has helped a lot of mentees, including me, to apply and get an admit for higher education abroad. Saif Bhai, please go ahead, unmute yourself and address the gathering.
Assalamu alaikum, everybody. And thank you, Salman, for the introduction. Before I know we have little time left, but before I begin, I want to say a couple of things. One is what Professor Sarwat just mentioned and went in detail, which was very important, that when anybody sends an email, it's a casual way of communication, and it also has become lately a formal communication, even when you apply for a job or for asking for assistantship or in the PhD program or masters. We still tend to be casual, and we just write as if we are writing to a friend and just click the submit button. So what had happened a few years ago, that a person, who is a professor in one of the universities, he got a letter or an email from a student, but what that student was doing, that he also did not bother to change the name. Rather than writing like, dear Professor X, he sent the same letter whom he had sent, dear Professor Y. And so it shows that how casual or how that careless the person is, that not even bothering. So what I will suggest, one thing to all the students who are applying or for anything, even when you write to your friends, sometimes your friends could be your employers, or or your friend may think about you, that what kind of person you are when you're writing something which is weird. In one way people say it. So make sure that when you click the submit button, after writing the email, read it first and then click the submit button. And especially for any kind of jobs or any formal communication, you must do so. And the second thing which I wanted to mention in a lighter way, that there are some participants who have joined this conference or webinar, and they have put their name as an exclamation mark. That means nobody can know. The first thing is that generally in most of the webinars, the people who don't identify themselves will not be let in. And then for example, somebody I see here is signed by exclamation mark, somebody is just writing me, ME, somebody is writing MK. So SSGSA is very generous. I know they still let them in, but make sure, like Sabaddin was mentioning, that don't write your email address like crazycool@gmail.com. So that doesn't give a good impression to the person who is receiving. Well, so anyway, I will just begin, and I'll be very short. Is basically summarizing what had been said. We had an excellent presentation from our speakers today. So in the interest of time and giving more opportunity to the students to ask questions, I will briefly go over with the key factors for admissions and financial aid. First and foremost of importance, like Professor Sarwat mentioned, is the academic record, and also how well you do in your GRE and TOEFL scores. Sometimes many admission committees, they have some office staff that looks into whether that application has a minimum GRE score, or I mean TOEFL score, or those things. And if you don't meet, they will put away your application and it won't be even reviewed. So academic record is absolutely important.
You are muted, Saif bhai.
Bhai, we cannot hear you.
And that shows that how interested you are in to pursue higher education. And one thing I want to mention here is that sometimes students, they do not put much emphasis on the letters of recommendation. Please ensure that you get letters from professors where you did your research or got good grades in their courses. If you got a C grade and you ask that professor that to write a letter of recommendation, you know what may be written. So it's important that you are put in top 2% or 5% if you want to get into a prestigious university. So you need to get the letters from those who think good about you or great about you. That's important. And don't take, like, I mean, some letter sometimes, I'm not able to find anyone, and I just get it from my buddy, and so it does help to get the letter from a professor who is well known in their area. And then research experience, this has been talked a lot, that does help you or add value to your credentials, especially the publication. But if you do not have a publication, that doesn't mean that you will be discarded and you will not have any chance of getting admitted. The faculties or the professors, they do think that when you have done just an undergrad, they will not expect you to have, like, 23 publications that Professor Sarwat just mentioned. I mean, I think that will be unrealistic. That, I mean, it does help, but it is absolutely not necessary. The last thing, which has been mentioned several times, when you contact a professor, make sure that there is a productive communication, not just, like, I mean, writing that I want the money or I want the financial aid to work with you because I'm applying to your university. You have to look into it, do due diligence, and look at, like, I mean, what they do. And also there are, like, I mean, places, depending on if they are getting the government funds. NIH has, like, I mean, the National Institute of Health in US has that system that you can look into. I would have gone into those details, but I mean, you can certainly do Google and you will find it, that if they have, like, I mean, financial aid from the government, or the grant, that's what they call it, that they will be able to offer you. So writing about their work and why you are interested in the field of interest is important. Do not just write a letter as if you are writing casually to a friend that you want the funding so that you can complete your master's or PhD. So with this, I will conclude here and pass on to Salman. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Saif bhai. We are a bit late, but we'll still be able to take a few questions. And I'll read out the questions that we have received in the chat box first. But if someone has a question for either Professor Sarwat or Dr. Sheikh, just unmute yourself and ask your question. Okay, the first question that I see is, does past industrial experience also have some weightage when applying for scholarship in the graduate program? I request Professor Sarwat to take this. I think you have already covered it, but if you want to add more.
Yeah, I think Sabha already responded, but I would like to add to that, highly important. But what you do with that industrial experience is very important, that what work you're doing there. Is it related to what you're trying to apply for? Just to give you two examples. One is if you're applying for masters, at least in my university, if you have more than 1 or 2 years of experience after doing undergraduate, they give you 33% of discount on the tuition fee, which is a phenomenal amount, because roughly 30,000 is the total master's fee. You get 1/3 waived off from there if you have industrial experience. The second thing is, if you're working on something which is related to your research and you got a job doing work there, that is how this student who's applying for PhD got 23 papers. He couldn't do it in the master's time. He spent 3 years in the industry and he has been writing papers of whatever work he was doing in the industry. So that is another opportunity for you to expand your horizon. Don't get disheartened. In America, age is not the limit. So that doesn't mean that as soon as you complete your master's, you should get your PhD position or something. So highly valuable. Sorry, you don't have much time, but continue with it. Yeah. Go ahead with the next question, Salman. I can talk about this for a long time.
Okay. So the next question that we have is from Ifra Farid. If due to COVID, your research experience is not enough, so is there any way we can fill that gap after masters?
Can I take that question again?
Yes.
Yeah. So yes, COVID has been out of world experience for everybody and not a good one. So yes, you should try to get the experience wherever possible. That's where I was talking about, especially us from Aligarh and everybody. We have been taught so much about voluntary work, so much to help others. So please use that. Even if you don't get a job, find a voluntary work to get more experience. And everything counts. Every single help or learning counts.
There's one more question from Arshia, but I think Arshia, when you asked those questions, we did not have Professor Sarwat's slides by then when you said, please expand more. So if you have some specific questions about US funding, you can unmute yourself and ask. Otherwise, I think your question has already been covered by the speakers.
Yes, my question has been covered. Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, so any more questions? We can take at least 2 more questions if you have, and then we'll call it off.
So there is one question, but it was sent direct to me, so I can just speak that question. So it's a few universities have a separate link or application for funding opportunities, scholarship, even for graduate programs. Does this mean that research assistant positions aren't available? Should we apply to those as well? So I request again, Professor Sarwat, to answer this. If it's not clear, I can repeat, or I can just copy the question in the chat for everyone.
Yeah, I couldn't understand. Yeah.
The question is in the general chat there too, Sabha. It's from.
Is it so?
Yeah, it's from Samina,
okay.
Right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's in everyone's. It's in.
So since there are 3 questions, so let me summarize it and then we can take it together.
Okay.
So yeah. So the first question is that the student is asking, sometimes there are like separate links for the funding part and the application part. Does it mean that the research assistant positions aren't available. Again, I am also not understanding the question, but what I think she means is that if there's no link for that, is the research position not available at all? The second question is, if does the teaching experience from India counts? And the third one will be if there is no dissertation in the master's program, how will that affect the application?
So I'll take in reverse order, respecting time. So like I gave you examples of what applicants are coming to me. It does not mean that is the only cookie cutter thing you have to do. If you have not taken the master's with thesis program, does not matter at all. What it matters is, are you passionate about something? Can you show some work in that area, whatever you are trying to do? And can you justify that work? So it does not matter. What was the second, Salman, in the middle you had?
Does the teaching experience from India counts?
100%. Every single experience, I'm repeating multiple times, every single experience count, but there should be justification. You cannot just make it out. So you have to link which professor, which classes, so that people can see it. Remember, you don't have second chance. It's all your resume and CV and other things. Nobody's coming to call you and ask you. So your sentences about teaching experience should show exactly what you did, with whom you did, so that there is some reasoning that, yeah, this was a genuine experience. The third question, I think I see it in front of me also on the chat. It's pretty confusing, but let me try. So like I told you, every professor is completely independent and he has a website. So if the professor is putting a link there for application, you got to apply there or you got to communicate there. Then it does not solve your problem completely, even if professor says yes, because on top of professor is the university system. So the graduate school and others will ask for the application. That's what I showed you in the slide, that once the professor has agreed, you got to apply to that. Third part is, that means I'm trying to guess what your question would be. There may be other research position available, maybe not. But if you're looking for PhD position, your point of your starting point is the professor. So you got to talk to the professor.
Thank you, Professor Sarwat. Saif bhai, do you have something to add to any of the questions? If you have a different opinion.
I think Professor Sarwat responded very well. And if there are any additional questions students can ask, or they can always write to us, and most times we are pretty prompt. And the only thing what I would add, that if you don't get a response, whether it is whether he or she is a professor or us, even your mentors, please don't hesitate to write again. As Sabahuddin mentioned, that you didn't hear for 2 weeks. Sometimes you don't have time to wait for 2 or 3 weeks before you get your response. If you don't get your response within 3-4 days, unless somebody is traveling, please remind or send a polite reminder for asking your questions again. So back to you, Salman.
Thank you, Saif bhai.
I just want to add one point. There is a last question that due to COVID, our research papers are waiting to get published, and maybe publish some papers after MSc and before applying the PhD. So from my side, I just want to add that, or I would just ask you guys that whether, let's say you have a research paper, so that means that you are already have a project ongoing. So I think you can show that in your resume by saying maybe under review or maybe like an ongoing project. So if this is the right way, then yeah, Dr. Sarwat, I think you can add more point to it.
No, Tanvi, you have said it very well. There are challenges, and even without COVID, the publication time has gone beyond 6 to 8 months nowadays. Mm-hmm. So what professor is trying to see is, are you matured enough to write? Because many of the students have very good qualification, but they can't write. So if you can't write, PhD is a tough call for you. So if you can document that it's under review or anything, that is very good.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sarwat. I know it's already over time, but these are the last two questions that I'm giving you away, and we are not taking any questions after that. So one question is from Herschel, and basically what he's asking is that if he write an email to a US professor, he doesn't get a reply, but same email in Europe works. What can be the reason? I don't know.
Yeah, so no, that's very true. In fact, we have been talking about it. The structure of research in the US is completely different from even Canada. Like I told you initially, that's what I was setting up the stage for, that if 2% of his proposals are getting funded, he has to write so many ideas to NSF and NIH to get the money. And then he would go into a selection mode to get 1 or 2 students. He does not have time to really respond to all the emails. So do not expect from the professor to write it. But the truth is, most of the professors read all the emails. So if he feels that you are capable and you would be the right person for that opportunity, he will definitely communicate with you. So do not think that it's going into a black box. But the only request is, like I showed you the samples, where people are making very basic mistakes which should not be done. You should first try to send it to your friend or somewhere and see how it looks, because many times in your editor, everything looks fine. When you email it, it changes dramatically. So please don't make those silly mistakes.
Salman, if you allow me, I just want to add something here. And I know Professor Sarwat mentioned very clearly, but sometimes, writing emails is easier and everyone writes. But sometimes, when you have written like a couple of emails, don't hesitate to make a polite phone call. So it's possible that, you may not be able to reach him or her on the phone, but if you do, then it's okay to follow up on that, because very few students, they generally do that to call, and it's just a
Saif bhai, we lost your audio.
We lost you. Yeah.
Saif bhai, we have lost your audio. I don't know why.
I don't have time to talk to you, or but it may be a rare thing, but you may get the answer whether you should still pursue or you should not. So just my thought on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Saif bhai. I think we cannot take any more questions from here. So with that, I request Sayyid Ali Rizvi Saab to do the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Salman Kashif, for this wonderful webinar. And thanks to all those who participated, all these scholars, and especially Sabauddin and Shujaut, and I believe one more person who said the initial slides that they shared. But
Hashir.
To all these, yes, thank you. But to all these, what Professor Sarwat mentioned and what Saif Bhai mentioned afterwards, and specifically for these 35 students who joined today, I think it was a brainstorming session with all these questions. You all have learned much more now and be better applicants in applying to US universities. So I thank all those who spoke their minds out, because this is the first step. People don't know you, they know you by your communication. They know you by your resume, they know you by what you write to them. They know you by how you speak with them and talk to them and communicate with them. So it's important to make the best foot forward. And today we learned so many good things from our esteemed and learned faculty and people who've done this path before all of you. And I'd like to add one more thing, Salman, here, that in most cases, these students who are applying from India are the best of the scholars from around the world. So we have to make sure that whatever we do, we put our best foot forward, and sharing this information that Professor Sarwat did with all his resumes or applications he got or communication he got from people, it just shows how people on the other side of the bench, the professors who look at your emails, that they look at what you're writing, and everything counts from how you address your greeting, your salutation, your content, your font size, everything they look at it. And so I'm grateful that we got this chance to hear these Professor Sarwat, and he shared some very specific examples. So boys and girls from AMU, you are in good hands, and we wish you best of luck. And thank you, Salman, for these webinars. They create such a huge amount of resource for our scholars in India. With this, thank you everyone for joining. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you so much, Ali Bhai. And thank you again, Professor Sarwat and Dr. Sheikh, for addressing us. And thank you to Sabaudin Bhai and Tanvi for organizing this webinar. And with that, I would just request Sabaudin Bhai to end this call.
Thank you, Salman. This was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
everyone for joining the session. Thank you.